Hi, boys and girls. We are going to read today together, read and discuss. You can follow along on the pages while I'm reading to you, and absolutely think about the questions that I ask. You can also talk it over with somebody that's at home with you today. This is my favorite story of Reading Street. Love this story. It's probably because, like I said earlier, because it's about food, and I love how the two cultures come together and create something really awesome. Okay, guys, so we're reading Jalapeno Bagels by Natasha Wing, and the pictures or the illustrations are done by Antonio L. Castro. The genre is realistic fiction, and that means it's a made-up story. It's not a real story about real people, but it could really happen in real life. So what is the setting of the story? So you're going to think about, while we're reading, where the story is taking place and when is it taking place. That's the setting questions, where and when. Question of the week: how can different cultures contribute to the foods we eat? So there isn't one food that I can think of that isn't from somewhere else that I really, really enjoy. So let's see where our food or our bagel comes from. What should I bring to school on Monday for International Day? I asked my mother. My teacher told us to bring something from our culture. You can bring a treat from the Panderia, she suggests. Panderia is what Mama calls our bakery. Help us bake on Sunday, then you can pick out whatever you want. It's a deal, I tell her. I like helping at the bakery. It's warm there and everything smells so good. Early Sunday morning, when it is still dark, my mother wakes me up. Pablo, it's time to go to work, she says. We walk down the street to the bakery. My father turns on the lights. My mother turns on the ovens. She gets out the pans and ingredients for pan dulce. Pan dulce is a Mexican sweetbread. I help my mother mix and knead the dough. She shapes rolls and loaves of bread and slides them into the oven. People tell her she makes the best pan dulce in town. Maybe I'll bring pan dulce to school, I tell her. Okay, so who do you think runs the bakery and how do you know? Of course, we've got to support our answer with our text evidence. Right, I think Mama and Papa own their own bakery, and I know this because, let me go back up to the paragraph where it says Panderia is what Mama calls our bakery. So they own the bakery where they are actually working. So they are a consumer and a producer. That's how we tie in our social studies from last week. What do we learn about the story from the use of dialogue and narration on page 298? So as we're reading, it starts right away with the character talking to us, Pablo, as we learn his name later on. So what do we learn from the conversation? Well, we learned that he has a cultural fair, and he has to bring some kind of food from his culture, and that he's probably going to pick something from the bakery. We also learned that he asks really good questions, and then I learned from the narration that the author tells me about what Panderia means. Next, we make empanadas de calabaza, pumpkin turnovers. I'm in charge of spooning the pumpkin filling. Mama folds the dough in half and presses the edges with a fork. She bakes them until they are flaky and golden brown. Some customers come to our bakery just for her turnovers. Maybe I'll bring empanadas de calabaza, I say. You'll figure it out, she says. Ready to make shango bars? Shango bars. Shango means monkey man. So what context clues or evidence can we use to figure out the meaning of chango bars? That's on page 301. Well, I see there are clues in the text that will help me figure out the meaning. Pablo explains that chango means monkey man, so chango bars means monkey man bars. Pablo and his mother have been making sweets and pastries, so chango bars is probably a nickname for another type of pastry or dessert. So there's some kind of filling, and I can't really tell what's in there, but it looks delicious. Why do you think the author uses the Spanish names for the baked goods? Remember, we are learning about cultures. Well, I think the author uses the Spanish names for the baked goods to tell the reader that the foods are from Mexican and Spanish-speaking cultures. So I think Pablo's mom must have some kind of Mexican or Spanish-speaking culture. Mama lets me pour in the chocolate chips and nuts. When she's not looking, I pour in more chocolate chips. I could bring Chongo bars. They're my favorite dessert. Mine too, says Mama. This batch should be especially good. I put in extra chips. My father calls from the back room, Pablo, come help me with the bagels. Papa speaks English and Yiddish. He learned Yiddish from his family in New York City. I know some words too. Bubby means grandmother. He uses my Bubby's recipe to make the bagels. First, he makes the dough in a big metal bowl. Then he rolls it out into a long rope shape. He cuts off pieces and shows me how to connect the ends in a circle. We put the circles on trays where they sit and rise. So, lots going on these 2 pages. So I found out that Mama is from a Spanish type of background, and I can conclude that Pablo's dad has a different cultural background. And I know this because the word Yiddish is a Jewish type of way of speaking, or a Jewish type of language. So I know that Papa's background is a little bit different. Why does Pablo help his parents at the bakery, and how does he help them? He's pretty busy for probably a kiddo your age. So Pablo needs to choose a food for his culture to bring to International Day. His parents tell him he can bring something from their bakery if he helps bake on Sunday. So he's been mixing and rolling, and now he's going to be helping his father in the back. So based on what you have read so far, how do you think the story will develop? What do you think is going to happen next? Well, just based on what I'm reading, I predict that Pablo will help make many baked goods and will try to decide what to take to school for International Day. I also predict that it's going to be kind of a hard decision, because I do think that the bakery is a pretty popular place based on what I can, the conclusions I can draw about Mama's pumpkin turnovers being the favorite and things like that. So I think it's going to be hard for him to choose what he brings. While we are waiting, my father makes challah, Jewish braided bread. He lets me practice braiding challah dough at my own counter. It's a lot like braiding hair. The customers say it is almost too beautiful to eat. Maybe I'll bring a loaf of challah to school, I tell Papa. He smiles. When the bagel dough has risen, he boils the bagels in a huge pot of water and fishes them out with a long slotted spoon. I sprinkle on poppy seeds and sesame seeds, and then they go in the oven. Maybe I could bring sesame seed bagels with cream cheese. No lox? Lox is smoked salmon. My father's favorite bagel is pumpernickel with a smear of cream cheese and lox. I crinkle my nose. Lox tastes like fish. Jam is better. I agree with Pablo on that one. So why are Pablo and his father able to make the challah and the bagels at the same time? Well, there is a process, right? The bagels have to sit for a little bit to make sure they get so that they double in size, so they're actual big enough to bake. Why do they make the challah? Well, they have a lot of baking to do because they have so many sweets that they sell that they can't just take a break. So I think that they're making the challah so that they have additional goodies for the bakery while they're waiting for the bagels to rise. Why does Papa smile when Pablo says he might bring a loaf of challah to school? Yeah, I think Papa is proud that Pablo is considering bringing something from Papa's culture to International Day, because him and Mama have different cultures. My mother joins us and helps my father make another batch of bagels, jalapeno bagels. My parents use their own special recipe. While Papa kneads the dough, Mama chops the jalapeno chilies. She tosses them into the dough and adds dried red peppers. We roll, cut, make circles, and let them rise. I can't wait until they are done because I am getting hungry. Have you decided what you're going to bring to school? Asks Mama. It's hard to choose. Everything is so good. I tell her. I look at Papa, except for lox. You should decide before we open, warns Mama, or else our customers will buy everything up. See, I knew it. I knew that they were a popular bakery. So how are the jalapeno bagels similar to the other bagels Pablo and his father make? So how are they the same? Well, I know that they follow the same process, that they have to roll out the dough. They have to knead the dough, which is, like work it with the fingers and kind of like you would with Play-Doh. So they have to make the dough nice and not so much gooey, but that it sticks together and everything's mixed together. And then they have to then they roll it out, they cut it, they make circles, and then they have to let it rise before baking them. How are these bagels different? Right? They've added something to the dough instead of just to the top. They've added green chilies. They've added jalapenos. Do you think that Pablo's parents' bakery is a successful business, and why do you think so? Well, I can draw the conclusion that the bakery is successful because Pablo's mother says that their customers buy everything up. And earlier in the passage, I know that there were a couple of sweets that are customer favorites. So now he has to decide. I wonder what he's going to choose. I walk past all the sweetbreads, shango bars, and bagels. I think about my mother and my father and all the different things that they make in the bakery. And suddenly, I know exactly what I'm going to bring. Jalapeno bagels, I tell my parents, and I'll spread them with cream cheese and jam. Why jalapeno bagels? Asks Papa. Because they are a mixture of both of you, just like me. Aw, I think that's awesome. So we're going to recall or retell the steps that Pablo and his father follow to prepare and bake the bagels. Okay, so first Pablo and his father make the dough, then they roll it into long rope shapes and connect the ends to make circles. Then they let the dough rise. Next they boil the bagels, and finally they bake the bagels in the oven. So if you look at the last page of our story here on page 309, there is actually a recipe for you to follow if you wanted to make bagels. So for this recipe, you will need lots of time, but these bagels are worth the wait. Ask an adult to help you. So you need lukewarm water, dry yeast, salt, sugar, flour, jalapenos, and dried red peppers. And then below are the directions that you would follow to make the bagels. I wonder if anyone or any of you would be interested in making the bagels. I have never tried making bagels before. All right, boys and girls, I really hope that you enjoyed the story, and I hope that you're not too hungry after reading it. I know I always get kind of hungry and start craving bagels after I read this story. All right, boys and girls, hop on over to your comprehension questions for today, and I will read with you later.